Hello and welcome to Village Church Connections. My name is Sunny Torres and I'm the Director of Spiritual Services for Shell Point. I've told you in the past that I homeschooled my children for many years. As a result, they grew up to be great writers, poets, and readers, anything having to do with words. But they were terrific. But in two areas they struggled, and it actually reflected the weakness in their one and only teacher, who never quite got the hang of mathematics or science. I tried different curriculums to bolster my effectiveness, but generally speaking, I had to call on outside help to make up for my lack. So the 11 homeschooling years were really beneficial, with some imported help, and my children turned out to be wonderful people, and smart too. I learned just as much as they did, really, but in a different kind of way, as I set out to interweave spiritual principles with every field of study we tackled. So today I'd like to share with you my favorite memory of a science experiment that didn't go awry, and that served as a spiritual image that has stayed in my mind for almost half a century. The subject that day was air pressure, and the experiment was meant to illustrate the fact that we live at the bottom of an invisible ocean of air, relentlessly pressing down upon us. My instructions were to find an empty, heavy metal can in which to boil away a small amount of water, and then quickly cap it, producing a vacuum inside. There we sat in our kitchen classroom, lined up at the counter, our eyes riveted on the half-gallon Vermont maple syrup can I'd found in the cellar. We half expected the experiment to fail as usual due to some glitch or oversight in the process, but not this time. Slowly, the thick sides began to buckle and crumble as if some gigantic fist had closed around it, while another was steadily pressing downward on it until at last its crumpled form lay there, a victim to the unseen forces surrounding it. It was pretty dramatic. But the textbook assured us that human beings were wisely created with enough air in their cells to push outward against the air pressure to prevent our bodies from suffering the same fate as the maple syrup can. Well, you might ask, what was the spiritual application of a squashed maple syrup can? Well, for the first time I realized the disastrous outcome of a vacuum under pressure. I thought of that heavy can that stood so firm and strong against the pressure normally, but under change conditions, it buckled because of its emptiness. That's a great illustration of our need for spiritual strength. We tend to neglect this interior part of life when everything around us provides wonderful distractions, adventures, and delight, hardly giving any of our attention to the care and feeding of our souls, which would fortify us on the inside to withstand the more difficult days that are eventually pressing in around us. That vacuum produced a victim once the pressure was on. I don't want that to happen to me or to anyone else. So are there tests to check our condition? Here's one. Who am I really when I'm all alone, with nothing to distract me or entertain me? Am I comfortable with myself, or do I feel like an empty space needing something or someone to fill it? Or do I feel an increased stirring to reach out and show compassion, discovering there's more satisfaction in giving than in getting? Now, those are signs that you're not empty. You're filled to overflowing, looking to spill over onto others. But if those things aren't happening, you know spiritual issues can't be remedied by physical solutions. And this is no ethereal, mystical riddle that only a few deep thinkers ponder. God wanted to make it clear by coming to earth and leaving His word for us, a living message in His Son. He never intended for us to live in a spiritual vacuum. Jesus told His disciples, "I have come that you might have life and have it in its fullness, a life in abundance." They already had physical life, so what kind of life was Jesus talking about? Well, it's spiritual life, that missing part, the vacuum inside of us. God knows that we require spiritual strength, pushing outward against the pressures coming down on us like that invisible squeeze on the maple syrup can. This is no easy place to live. This is no easy season of life through which many of us are passing. Spiritual life is the only kind of life that has its source in God. It's eternal life. It is a gift made available at the cost of the life of God's Son on the cross on our behalf. But it's also a necessity in this difficult world. That same Creator who wisely designed our cells to withstand air pressure also shows His genius in providing Himself to fill up that vacuum that would cause us to cave in under pressure. He promises to come take residence in those who love Him enough to invite Him in. God is simply waiting for a heart response, a 3-word prayer: I need you. Not one of us was created to be a vacuum. And if you're feeling that way today, it's a good day to change all that. Abundant life, eternal life, is available to us all. Now that's good news. And thank you for watching today.